Let's go.
Welcome to the Trusted Leader Show. I'm your host, David Horsager. Join me as I sit down with influential leaders from around the world to discuss why leaders and organizations fail, top tactics for high performance, and how you can become an even more trusted leader. Welcome to the Trusted Leader Show. I'm David Horsager, and I have a special guest, someone I, from afar, have looked up to for a long time. Please welcome the brilliant Sam Horn. How are you, Sam?
David, I'm so glad to be here. Boy, are we going to have fun. And I hope people have pen and paper, because we're going to ink it when we think it. We're going to jump right in. And the thoughts are going to be flowing so fast, their fingers won't be able to keep up. Sound good?
That sounds great. And, you know, some you may or may not know, she's written 9 books. She's a best-selling author. But I think this is interesting. She's coached or consulted, executive producer of the Oprah Winfrey Show, the CEO of Travelocity. She is, you know, coached and consulted with the Phantom of the Opera on Broadway, Ironman triathletes, founders, co-founders, director of the Disney Institute. You know, she has one of the most fast-paced, innovative minds I've seen. I watched her 20 years ago take a CEO on stage and just draw out ideas and be innovative. So, Sam, we are just thrilled that you're here. You know, let's start out with, before we even get into it too much, 3 things we should know about Sam Horn.
I played tennis at the White House, and I was playing with the DIA, the head of defense, and he said, "Grab the tennis balls." I'm thinking nuclear tech. No, it was the Ford's Golden Retriever who were coming to grab our tennis balls. So I bet people don't know that about me.
That's a good one. That is a good one. And right now, you know, I think as we jump into some of what you think about a lot, we talk a lot about leadership. Maybe before we get into even some of your books and brilliant ideas, what habits, you know, we talk about personal leadership also leads to effective leadership publicly. And what habits have you created or routines that have helped you be a better public leader in a way?
You know, David, you're all about trust. And I believe as leaders, we make our living from our mind. And I really mean it about ink it when we think it. And we have time for like a 60-second story about this?
Anytime, anything from you.
Okay, well, you know DeWitt Jones, right? Another Hall of Fame speaker, DeWitt Jones, former National Geographic photographer. So I'd asked DeWitt to the Maui Writers Conference, and we're walking the beach the morning before, and he was doing something that really puzzled me. We would be walking, and he'd whip out a notebook and write something down, and we'd walk another 100 yards. He'd whip out that notebook, write something down. I said, "DeWitt, what are you doing?" And he said, "Sam, I used to get these ideas and I think, oh, that should go in my keynote. Oh, I'll put that in my column next week." And then I'd forget about it. And I realized I was throwing away gold. And he said, "I take a notebook with me wherever I go. And when it occurs to me, I jot it down in the moment, because I may not know when or where I'll use it. I just know it's going to be there waiting for me." And I believe that habit makes our life our lab. You know, Annie Lamott said, writers get to live life twice. And I think we get to live it thrice. We live life more intensely and we're more observant. Than when we see something that gets our eyebrows up, we write it down, we share it, and then we hear back from people how they've used it. So isn't that a better way to live?
Well, that's awesome. And every one of your books is just beautifully written and takeaways and inspiration. But before I go backwards and ask you about some things that have inspired me, what are you writing now?
I'm working on Tongue Fu too. And you've heard of techniques, right? Well, these are talkniques. You know, in a virtual world with cameras off and videos disengaged and people disengaged, how can we communicate and connect even if we can't see each other, even if the person's on the other side of the world?
Let's jump into that, because I even wanted to go back to Tongue Fu, because, you know, when we think about trust, our greatest opportunity to build trust actually is not in first interaction. Our greatest opportunity to build it the fastest is in crisis, in conflict. And you gave some great takeaways and ideas of how, you know, think it by what you say and how you say it, you can build trust in conflict or crisis. Give us some ideas if you're willing.
All right. Now, by the way, people ask, how does my mind work? I juxtapose everything. I think it is the quickest way to make a complex idea crystal clear. So right now, if people are watching this, unless they're driving and listening to it, get a piece of paper and put a vertical line right down the center. We're going to have words to lose on the left. We're going to have words to use on the right. And since you're about trusted leadership, these words on the left block trust. They sabotage trust. The words on the right build trust. They support trust. So I'm going to run right through them, all right? Over on the left, I'll tell you, and then listen to the cumulative impact, and then we'll replace them with more proactive words on the right. So put down the word but, right? On the left, I hear what you're saying, but we tried that before and it didn't work out. You did a good job on that, but, it's like you forgot to. The word but destroys trust. It makes it adversarial. Next, put down the word should. Someone makes a mistake. We said, you should have been more careful. You should have brought that up in a staff meeting. People resent us, even if what we're saying is right. Over on the left, put the word you need to. I mean, we're bosses, right? We tell people what to do. Here's the thing. Do we know anyone who likes to be ordered around? You need to, you have to, you need to get it done today. Next one is can't because. Well, I'm sorry, I can't help you with that because. No, you can't do that because it hasn't been approved yet. And I've got lots of them. One more, and then we'll stop. There's nothing. Hey, there's nothing I can do. It's not my fault. I didn't make up the rules. COVID, don't blame me, right? All of those words will undermine our respect and our trust as a leader. So, want to know what to replace them with?
I'd love to. And everyone would.
Let's build in a little suspense, right, David?
That's right. I'm writing right now because you're also making me think of other things, other ideas, other thoughts. Great.
If we had more time, then we would turn it over to your leaders and we would ask them, think about what do people say that makes them feel shut down? What do people say that causes resentment? What do people say that actually creates a conflict? And we'd come up with these whole list on the left, and then we show the shift and we replace them with these words on the right. So here's but, put and next to it. I hear what you're saying, and we tried that before, and it didn't work out. And do you have any ideas on how we can do that better? And advances conversations, but anchors it in an argument. How about that word should? When something goes wrong, we tell people what they should have done. Over on the right, next time, from now on, in the future. Because now we're being a coach instead of a critic. We are shaping behavior instead of shaming it. And people are learning from their mistakes instead of losing face. Ready? Next one? Or shall I stop? At any time, you can tell me to put a sock in it, David.
I love it. I love it. This is what we're going for. I love this.
All right, next
everybody,
one.
I can speak for everybody, by the way. And here I interrupt, but I can tell everybody you got more energy than 95% of people, and I just love it. But more than that, takeaways we can use tomorrow morning. So thank you.
That's what we both value, right? It's like we're leaders. Come on, the clock starts ticking the second we start talking. Let's give real life value we can apply immediately, right?
Absolutely. And that's what I saw 20 years ago, and I know of still today. So thank you for that. Let's go. You need to. You need to.
If you would, could you please, instead of you need to get that done today, could you please make sure that gets done today? It's really important. So see, we give the rationale. It's just that people are a lot more likely to cooperate willingly instead of comply reluctantly when we ask them and treat them with respect instead of ordering them around with those commands. Right. Ready for the next one?
Ready. I can't because.
Can as soon as. Can right after. Instead of, no, we can't start this meeting because we're still missing 3 of our board members. Yes, we can start the meeting as soon as those board members show up. And if they're not here in 5 minutes, we're going to get started anyway. Thank you for your patience. Now, by the way, David, are you a father?
4 kids.
4 kids. Boom. Let's talk about how we can use this at home, right? It's like a dad said this was going to change the way he parented. He said, Sam, I have 3 kids under the age of 10. It seems like all I ever do is tell them no. No, you can't play with your friends because you haven't done your homework. You can't watch TV because you haven't done your chores. And then we usually do what's called stacking. You know the rules around here. That TV doesn't go on until those chores are finished. How many times do I have? And we're off and running, right?
Absolutely. I hear it all. I can see it.
Okay, now you do this. Change it instead of, no, you can't play with your friends because you haven't finished your chores. How would you turn that around?
You can't, no, you can't be on the, whatever it is, this video game until, or as soon as you have all your chores done, or...
We can even turn it into a yes instead of no, you can't, because yes, you can play with your friends as soon as you finish your chores. Clean up your room, take out the trash, and then you can go out and shoot hooms. Yes, you can watch TV as soon as you finish your homework. Do your math. Let me have a look at it. Then you can turn. And you know what? This is not semantics. It changes the whole dynamic of the relationship. Because when we say no, you can't, because they see us as blocking them from what it is they want. When we say, yes, you can, as soon as, who's responsible for getting what it is they want now?
Put the responsibility back on them. I
That's
love
right.
it.
Hey, it's Ann with the Trust Edge team here. As you know, we are passionate about helping you and your team perform at your best. And that's why David wrote his new book, Trusted Leader. This true-to-life parable follows the story of a CEO who uncovers the root issue threatening his organization's success. And in the back half of the book, David provides a roadmap for even how to solve those root issues. Get Trusted Leader for your team, your organization, or even just for yourself at trustedleaderbook.com.
As long as we're into Tung Fu, let's go 2.0 and say, what about a virtual environment? What about this world we're in? How do we build, in our case, build trust and communicate well, even in this environment that we're stuck in? And frankly, in many ways, it will be forever.
I just love this question. Richard Branson said, time is the new money. And do you know what I say? Time is the new trust. And I think the first way that we build trust online is that we start on time. Is because, did you know anxiety can be defined in 2 words? Not knowing. And if we log on, and first, if people say, well, I know we're supposed to start, but we're going to wait for latecomers. What's that about? We're honoring the latecomers, not the, rewarded behavior gets repeated, right? What are we teaching? So if we want people to trust us to always be a good use of their time, we always start on time, because time equals trust, right?
No doubt. No doubt.
The next thing is we bookend our interactions with goodwill. And I'll give you a quick example of this. I had an opportunity to do a webinar for a large organization, and my contact and meeting planner had spent a lot of time on this, and it went pretty well. And they had more people ever that signed up for this. They got wonderful comments in chat. And I was copied on the email of the CEO to the meeting planner. It had 2 lines in it, David. It said, why weren't the PowerPoint slides on our template, and why didn't you thank the sponsors? That was it, David. Didn't say a thing about the months of work into it. Didn't say, hey, congratulations on getting more people than we've had before. Hey, look at those comments. So here's the prescription, because we're proactive. How can we do it better? Is to start every email with a reference to a previous interaction. Even if it's a problem, it's like, thank you for bringing this to our attention. I am so glad you told us that you left 3 voice messages we haven't gotten back yet. So it's like, hey, how did that 10K go? It's like we reference something in the previous email because that sets up continuity and it personalizes it instead of having this terse is worse. And then we wrap up with I look forward. I look forward to seeing you next week. I look forward to getting, feedback on this project. And if we start and we close, that's called bookending. And authors know this, that when we start warm and we end warm, it gives people this full circle sense of completion, and they feel like they got what they came for. And we are making professional communication personal, which warms up what otherwise is a cold medium.
Absolutely. Anything, with all this interaction, I just did a global event today with hundreds of people on. Anything as communicators, professional communicators, we should be thinking about to connect with the audience in that virtual environment. What can we do more of?
Names and places, names and places. You know, people feel remote, right? And they feel anonymous. And that's when they start feeling very distant and they feel a part from the group instead of feeling a part of the group. So when we ask for questions, it's like, hey, Sue from St. Louis, you know, you got a question over here. And it's Bob from Santa Barbara. You know, it's like now people feel like they're part of a community and they know, oh my goodness, there's 30 countries on this call. You know, and we've got Jose from Mexico and we've got Sashish from, and by giving people names, we give them an identity. And even if we can't name all 5,000 people on the call, these are stand-in representatives. So people feel like we're seeing them instead of just on automatic pilot giving a speech that we've given 100 times before.
I love it. We could go deeper on every one of these, but I'm going to keep going. And you tell us where you want to go to, because you've got so much you're thinking about right now. But your book, Pop, tell us just a glimpse about that, because that was a fascinating one. And that was, you know, kind of when I started to know you, I think.
You know, thank you. In fact, I was thrilled when Seth Godin got in touch and gave me the cover endorsement for the book. He said, a quarter of the way through this book, you'll be begging to hire Sam Horn as your consultant. I'm going, thank you, Seth.
Absolutely. So tell us about what's that stamp? What is Pop? How do I create, you know, I can stand out in a crowd. I can create a competitive advantage. What does that mean to Pop?
Well, if we can't get people's attention, we're never going to get their business, right? And in a very crowded, competitive society, if we don't have a secret sauce, if we aren't doing something that is how are we uncommon? How are we unlike our competitors? So, of course, I've got dozens of techniques on how to do this. So shall we just give like POP right now? 3 different ways to do it?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. So P is for purposeful. And here's my question to you. Is when people finish reading your website, when they finish hearing your TEDx talk, when they finish hearing your annual meeting, can they repeat anything they heard word for word? Because if they can't, that's not purposeful. Now, this idea comes from Gary Marshall, by the way. Did you see the movie Pretty Woman?
Yes.
Okay, Gary was the director, producer of that. He said something at Maui Writers Conference. It was so profound. I remember it as if he said it this morning. He said Hollywood directors can predict when their movies will make money based on one thing. Guess what it was?
Purpose. Purposefulness.
Well, it is. That wasn't a trick question, and you are right. It is. Can people repeat anything word for word? Because if someone says, seen any good movies recently, and you say, make my day, I'll be back, show me the money, they have become brand ambassadors for you. They're taking your work viral. So all of your leaders, go on your company's website, at the end of a presentation to your employees, say, what do you remember? And if they can't repeat anything, it means it's out of sight, out of mind. We don't want to be out of sight, out of mind. We want to be top of mind. And one way to do that is to make sure every communication has a stated purpose that is repeatable and retweetable.
That's perfect. What about that O?
Okay, O is for original. And we've heard that there's nothing new under the sun, right? I disagree. I think that our success depends on coming up with something that's new under the sun. Now, I've got a lot of ways to do that. One is just to do the opposite of the always. And here's a wonderful example of that. Do you know that when Enterprise entered the car rental agency market years ago, 80% market share, Hertz and Avis, number 1 and number 2, 80% market share. Now, why would you go into an industry that was owned by the big boys? Well, you ask yourself 2 questions. What do they all do? Well, they're all located at airports. So don't locate in airports. Go in the neighborhoods, right? And ask yourself another question. What do customers want that none of them are offering? What did customers want? Pick up and drop off service. So Enterprise was first of its kind. And when you're first of your kind, you own the market. You have no competition. By the way, guess who owns they don't own, but they have the largest market share worldwide in that car rental agency industry.
In history.
Enterprise.
Wow.
Enterprise.
Wow.
And so see, all of your leaders, I know that you work with people around the globe in all kinds of different industries. And if we think, I can't compete with them, you can if you're original. And here are just 2 ways to do that. What do they all do? I'm not going to go head to head with them, right? Yeah. I'm going to go where they're not. And then what do people want that they don't offer? And I'm going to be first to market with that.
I know something you say along those lines is you want to corner the niche, create a niche, right?
Right. That's exactly right.
or this one too, when you're one of a kind, you have no competition. Well, boom. Live it and say it. All right, let's go to that final P on pop.
Okay, now I've switched this around since I wrote the book Pop, and this one is for promote, because I really believe that leaders kind of feel like they're like doctors and lawyers used to be. Is like, we don't self-promote, right? I mean, that's like below me, that's beneath me, and it's out of integrity. And I really believe if you believe in what you care about, if you have a cause, if you believe in your company, if you are not promoting it through speaking at a TEDx or through a quality book, people may not be aware of it, and that doesn't serve any good purpose, does it? So do we have time for a very quick example? Okay. So I was hired by a health executive. I had a big Six Sigma training company, and he was going to be speaking at a medical conference. And it was good news, bad news. At first, he's speaking at this medical conference with thousands of decision makers in the healthcare industry. The bad news was he was going on the 4th day of a 4-day conference in the afternoon. He said, Sam, I don't even think people are going to be around. So I talked him through my 7P process to come up with something that would help him pop out of the brochure and that would motivate these decision makers to come to his session. Now, so I'm not going to go through the whole process. Just suffice it to say that one of the ways we pop out is that we leverage what you do as a hobby or special interest. It is a way to make what is familiar fresh. And so I said, what do you do when you're not working? He said, Sam, I'm never not working. I'm on the road 5-6 days a week. I said, well, when you're home, do you and your wife do anything? He says, well, sometimes I play. I watch Law and Order, the TV show. Bingo. I knew what it was. Now, you know what Six Sigma is, right, David?
Of course.
If you were going to explain it to our audience, what is Six Sigma so people kind of understand it?
Well, I've never been through it, but I would say it's taking out any extras and making a lean environment. So no extra.
Boom, you just did it. Is that they figure out the errors, the inconsistencies, the inefficiencies, and they clean them out so it's lean. And so they have a very highly efficient, highly profitable system, right? So when he said he watches Law and Order, boom, I knew what we were going to call his program. Guess what it was called? Flaw and Order. Yes.
Well, how do you stay so creative and innovative? I mean, how do you keep that mind thinking? It seems like some people could be listening to you and saying, well, she just connects these things. They just come out of her head. And certainly there's a gifting, but there also is almost, it seems like a way of doing it that makes you creative and fresh, even right now.
First, thank you for that. And I think that's why Seth, who is a very generous supporter of other business authors and entrepreneurs, why he endorsed that book is that there are techniques in pop that can help you be creative, even if you're not creative. One of them is called alphabetizing. You actually go through your website, you go through a presentation you give, you pull out 10 to 20 words. That's your word bank. Then you run them through the alphabet. Think about it. Tung Fu is an alphabetized form of Kung Fu. Someone said this is kind of like a verbal form of Kung Fu. Run it through the alphabet. Un Fu, Bun Fu, Sun Fu, Dun Fu, Yun Fu, Fun. Eventually you get to Tung Fu, right? You don't stop there, though. There's Un Fu. Oh, there's Fun Fu, how to handle hassles with humor. And there's, Tung Su for lawyers. And then there's Young Fu for kids.
There you go. Wow. Excellent.
And by the way, if your leaders are thinking, Sam, that's cutesy. Hey, I'm a sophisticated executive of a multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar company. We're not always talking about cutesy. In fact, can I tell you about an example that saves lives with what we're doing? It's not cutesy. It's not wordplay. wordplay. It's bottom line saving lives. Do we have time for that?
What is it? Please. Well, no, please don't. We don't want to save any lives. Absolutely. Keep on. It's great. What is it?
Well, we talk about how to come up with airtight sound bites, right? So what we say is repeatable, retweetable, and the R stands for rhyme. Rhyme is sublime because it's remembered over time. So the U.S. government was very concerned about injuries and fatalities and accidents. So they mounted a multi-million-dollar public service campaign, and it was called Buckle Up for Safety. Clunky, right? Nothing changed. Nothing happened. They went back to the drawing board. This time they came up with a rhyme. Guess what it was?
I got to hear it.
Click it or ticket. David, compliance went up and injuries and fatalities went down. Do you see, this is not silly wordplay. It is the difference between what we say goes on uninterested ears and no behavior change, or whether people see it and they're motivated to change their behavior and actually reduce fatalities and injuries.
Right. So let's take, you were for years and years the executive director of the Maui Writers Conference, one of the most notable writers events in the world. But you're a writer and a speaker and a leader and all these things. But let's go to writing, because do you have a discipline of writing every day? The last guest I had was big on journaling and just how journaling helped him lead as a leader. But tell us about the discipline of it for you.
If you said, Sam, you can only give one tip after helping many, many people with their books and so forth, you can only give one tip. Do you know what it would be?
I can't wait to hear it.
Don't reread what you've written. Because if you reread what you've written, you'll rewrite what you've written. And at the end of the week, it won't necessarily be better. It will just be different. Progress produces pace. Pace produces mental momentum. Mental momentum produces flow. Flow is that stream of conscious state, not that self-conscious state. Because if we edit as we go, the critical voice kills the creative voice. We come to a screeching halt. Now we're stuck, right? And the way to get out of that is produce, 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 produce. That's when the voice comes out and plays, because it knows it's not going to get judged.
And yet, at some point, it seems like we're going to be judged. We have to critique. My wise older brother, the economist, says we're in a more critical world than we've ever been in without the ability to critically think, right? If you're a leader, you want to be critiqued for a living, give a speech, write a book, or lead anything. So how do we do this?
And this is a two-part answer, because obviously when we finish 5 chapters, we reread them, right? When we finish a blog and we set it aside for a day, we come back with fresh eyes. And at that point, you see, the key, though, is first get it written, then get it right. Draft, then craft. Most of us, we craft as we're drafting. We're editing as we go. We're trying to get it right as we get it written. And when we do that, it will probably never get out the door, because perfectionism is a form of procrastination.
So let's go long form. You're an amazing storyteller. Tell us about the power of story and how you leverage story as a leader.
David, we could do this all day, couldn't we?
We could. And I'm going to suck the marrow of life out of your brain with the few minutes that I have.
Okay, well, this is credit to Shankar Vedantam. Shankar Vedantam, who does Hidden Brain on NPR, wrote an article in the Washington Post years ago about, and this does get to storytelling. In fact, it's probably one of the most eye-opening insights about the power of storytelling to motivate people to care about what we care about. So hang in there, because this does serve a purpose, okay?
Absolutely.
Here is this oil tanker that caught fire 800 miles off the coast of Hawaii. And a cruise ship happened to be going by and was able to rescue the 11 people. The captain gave a press conference and he talked about how grateful he was to be rescued. All he can think about is his dog that got left behind, abandoned on the tanker. And that press conference went viral and donations started pouring in from around the world, $5, $500, $5,000. The U.S. Navy changed the exercise area of the Pacific Fleet. They search 50,000 square miles of open ocean. They find the tanker. They send the C-130 to fly low to see if there's any signs of life. Here's this brown and white blur racing up and down the deck of a tanker. They mount $250,000 rescue mission to get this dog. And they are able to bring Hotget back to Hawaii. Now, what's the point? Here's the point. Why did people from around the world mobilize to save one dog when there are thousands of people in our own cities and states and countries going without food, water, and shelter? It's because of something called the empathy telescope. And the empathy telescope says we can put ourselves in the shoes of one person. We cannot put ourselves in the shoes of an idea. We can put ourselves in the shoes of an individual. We cannot put ourselves in the shoes of an organization. So every leader who is listening to this, David, what is your dog on a tanker story? Because if we want people to care about what we care about, if we're just trotting out big numbers, that's when people look away because it seems overwhelming. And when we're overwhelmed, we're immobilized. If we tell the story of one person who had a problem or a challenge and worked with us or bought our product or used our services, and now they're better off, we can identify with that one person. That's when we relate to it. That's when we remember it. And that's when we want it.
That is powerful. We can put ourselves only in the shoes of one person. Mm-hmm. So there's a whole lot more we could cover. But let's think, you've written some on productivity, and we often get right at some tips people could take tomorrow that would help them be better, more effective, more efficient. As leaders, what's the tip of the day for us from Sam Horn?
That someday is not a day in the week. And that Paulo Coelho said that one day we're going to wake up and there won't be any time left to do the things we've always wanted to do. And when I work with leaders, we often say, what's your legacy message? What's your legacy project? How can we leverage your your experience, your expertise, and your epiphanies so everything you've learned along the way doesn't just stay up here. Mm-hmm. It's out there making a difference for people and will be out there making a difference for people long after you're gone. So what is that? And then start it. Put a date on the calendar instead of waiting for a someday that may never come.
So what about you? What do you hope for? You look out in the future. What's Sam Horn's someday or out there or vision for what's ahead? You've done so many remarkable things, many things you've done through others by equipping and encouraging and impacting them. What is it for you?
David, and once again, credit to this, Jan Struthers came up with a quote. She said, she was twice blessed. She was happy and she knew it. And isn't that lovely? And I am so happy and I know it. And so I have a foot in both worlds. I live in Austin, Texas now, and my son and his family and my grandson live 12 minutes away. And so one foot is in this world where everything is right in my world. I love where I am. I love my friends and my family and the time to spend with them. And the other foot is in an ikigai. And are you familiar with the phrase ikigai by any chance?
I'm not.
It's a Japanese word that means a reason to get up in the morning. So what is your ikigai goal? And mine right now in a tandem, side by side, 50-50, is getting the Tung Fu 2.0 book out in the world next year so that people can use these techniques at work, at home, online, and in public.
I love it. Well, let's keep going. I just can't. We got to come back on. As that book comes out, let's come back and talk about this some more. But as we head toward the end here, we hit a lightning round for everybody. It's your turn, but let's just start and we'll get to anything else. If you want to cover something else after that, you feel like, boy, I've got to share this. I want to hear it. So Here we go. Favorite book or resource right now?
Oh, right now. Who? You know what? I would recommend A Social Dilemma on Netflix. You know, it is an eye-opener about the addiction to social media and the ripple effect of isolation and depression and disconnection.
We watch very little TV. One of our biggest angst for my wife and I is dealing with the kids on screen time. And we watched it as a family. We talked about it. We had put parameters in place and whatnot, but very powerful. And I can't agree more. What's something you can't live without?
Walking and swimming. I've got a pool 5 minutes away in nature, open lanes, no sharing lanes, people kicking you in your face and so forth. So walking and swimming, I'm a happy camper.
I love it. Any key, speaking of that, talk about leading yourself is important to leading others. So any key personal habit or routine you have that just makes you better as a person or leader? It's
clarifying my 3 C's. And these are my non-negotiables every day. Dale Carnegie said to live in day-tight compartments, and I believe in living in day-right compartments. So I ask all of us to think, what are 3 things we do? And at the end of the day, no matter what else happened, if we do these 3, we feel we did our half. And those for me are connect, contribute, and cavort.
All right. What was your cavort most recently?
My cavort is to move joyously, and really, so I do laps. However, and I understand the importance of exercise and sweating and aerobic and heart rate and so forth. However, cavorting is doing what Thich Nhat Hanh said, is to walk as if your feet are kissing the earth.
I love it.
Wonderful.
I love it. Wow. Well, you've shared many of them, and I know you have more. So what is a quote or thought to live by?
For me, well, can I do 2?
Please.
I often start every presentation with this quote because it really is a mantra for life, is that Arthur Rubinstein said, I have found if you love life, life will love you back.
Absolutely.
And then I usually say, I love this program and to help you love it back, etc. However, I believe go first, right? We love life, and then it will love us back. Mm-hmm. And the second is the one you and I shared at the beginning, David. It's what Katharine Graham of the Washington Post said. A reporter asked her what it was like running at that point one of the country's most important newspapers. And she thought about it for a moment. She said, to do what you love and feel that it matters, how could anything be more fun? Well, that's what we get to do. We get to do what we love, feel that it matters, and do it with people we enjoy and respect that put the light on in our eyes. Pretty good living, isn't it?
Undeniably. I love it. Well, I've got one more big question for you. But before we do that, what a treat in this conversation. Sam, where can our listeners find out more about you? We'll put it all in the show notes. We're going to put some connections to Sam Horn and her amazing books and tips and takeaways and where you can find out more about her. But give us the first place we should go.
Thank you for doing that, David. It's easy. It's intrigueagency.com. So it's INTRIGUE agency. There's information there about my pop master classes and my writing workshops, and my TEDx talk is on there as well on how to get people's eyebrows up in the first 60 seconds. So intrigueagency.com.
Intrigue Agency. And she has more than one TED talk. I won't TEDx talk. I'll let you know she has a few, and they're all fantastic. So Sam, what a treat to have you here. Here's the final question. It's the Trusted Leader Show. Who is a leader you trust and why?
I trusted, and he's still around, Rod Laver. I had the privilege of working with Rod Laver, won the Grand Slam of tennis twice, Australian, French, Wimbledon. And one of the reasons that I trusted Rocket is that he was such a class act. He worked hard and he played hard, and he was perpetually gracious. people would come up and say, I saw you play in St. Louis. He was always kind to every single person he met. And so kudos to Rocket for the example of class that he sent. It was a joy working with him.
What a treat to see people that have class, as we say on stage and off, right?
Agreed.
So, well, it has been a delight. Thank you, Sam Horn, for joining me. Thank you for the gift you've given to our audience. And of course, you can find a whole lot more about Sam Horn at trustedleadershow.com. Look forward to seeing you next time, and stay trusted.